What's up, YouTube? Shamu Aquariums here, bringing you guys another video. This time I'm going to talk about why I stopped recommending that people keep multiple rainbow sharks or red-tailed sharks in a tank. And the reason for that is not because I didn't have success with it. I actually had a lot of success with it. And as you guys know, if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you guys know that I had a large group of like 5+ rainbow sharks and red tail sharks in my tank. All of them lived into full adulthood and old age. And over the last couple of years, they all got old, so they were dying off slowly one by one. They all lived anywhere from 6 years to 8.5 years. So that was enough to be pretty successful, and you can even see some old videos of them all hanging out together without being aggressive with each other. And yeah, there was the typical chasing and fighting, but when the fights did happen, they would only last like a few minutes, and the chases were like in short bursts, and rather than being like all around in circles all over the tank. But I decided to stop doing that because I just simply wanted to have more room and more space in the tank for other species of fish, so I would have room for more diversity. And it was kind of hard to have room for diversity when half the stock was taken up by a bunch of rainbow sharks and red-tailed sharks that all looked the same. I wanted to have different kinds of fish in here. Now, the criteria for being able to successfully keep rainbow sharks and red-tailed sharks together in a tank is 1, have a large tank. 100 gallons or bigger, or 5 feet or longer. 2, have tons of hiding places, lots of plants, lots of caves, you name it. And also, keep them in a group of 5 or more. Now, the problem with that was I had a major problem with so many people who took my advice only taking part of that advice. So after I explained all that stuff to them, like a couple weeks later, they would show me their tank and they're like, I just put 2 red-tailed sharks and 4 rainbow sharks in my tank, and they show me their 40-gallon or 55-gallon with 5 or 6 sharks in it, not that much hiding spots. And I am just like, wow, dude, you completely ignored the part where I said 100 gallons or bigger. Now, I know people could say, oh, well, I plan to upgrade them to a 125 gallon in about a year. Now, I typically do not buy a fish until I already have the tank that is needed for them when they become adults. Yeah, sure, I've put roseline sharks in a 10-gallon, but that's because I already had a 46-gallon bow front cycling with the intention to move them into there. And then later on, I moved them into the 125-gallon that I already had at the time. But that's not the point. So, another part where people would only take part of that advice is where they would show me their tank and it's 3 rainbow sharks and 2 Bela sharks. When I say that you're supposed to keep rainbow sharks and red-tailed sharks in a group of 5 or more, that only includes the rainbow sharks, the albino rainbow sharks, and the red-tailed sharks. Other, quote, sharks do not count, like Bela sharks, roseline sharks, and iridescent sharks do not count as part of that group. They have to strictly be rainbow sharks, albino rainbow sharks, and red-tailed sharks. Like, I remember one specific case several years ago. Some guy on YouTube posted his shark tank after I recommended to him hey, if you want to keep multiple sharks in a tank, get a 100-gallon tank and have them in a group of 5 or more and have plenty of hiding spaces. This dude stuck 3 redtail sharks and 3 rainbow sharks or something like that in a 10-gallon tank that only had gravel in it and nothing else. It was just gravel, water, and a bunch of rainbow or redtail sharks in it. A 10-gallon freaking tank. And I literally specifically told this dude a 100-gallon tank or bigger with lots of hiding spaces, and he only listened to the part where I said keep them in a group of 5 or more. So after dealing with all that bullshit, nowadays whenever somebody asks me how many rainbow sharks or redtail sharks can I put in my 125-gallon tank, I'll just tell them 1. Because I know that there is a 50% chance that if I were to tell them keep them in a group of 5 or more with plenty of hiding spaces in a 100+ gallon tank, they are not going to listen to each and every single one of those points. If they have a 125-gallon tank, well, cool, they have the tank size down, but what if they only end up throwing like 2 redtail sharks in there, and then the other 3 are roselines or bala sharks, which don't count? Or if they don't put enough hiding spaces in the tank. So yeah, I basically just stopped advising people to keep multiple rainbow sharks and redtail sharks in a tank altogether. And it is one of my biggest pet peeves when I explain something to somebody and they only listen to part of it. It's like when you go to a fast food place, you order a double cheeseburger and a large Coke, and all the worker heard was cheeseburger, Coke, and you end up with a regular cheeseburger and a medium-sized Coke, the regular-sized Coke. People are so like, their attention spans are so horrible. Like, they only listen to part of what you tell them. So yeah, as you can see nowadays, I myself only have 1 rainbow shark in here, and he is quite territorial, as you can see. The one advantage that I had when keeping multiple of these guys in a tank was the fact that they only like really stayed focused on each other if there was any kind of aggression, and they would leave the other fish alone. But as you can see, the one that I have right now, every time the cories and the rose lines and the rainbow fish come into his, like in front of his cave, he'll chase them off. Whereas when I had a bunch of other rainbow sharks and redtail sharks in here, they would only mess with each other here and there, but leave all the other fish alone for the most part. So that is one advantage to having multiple of these guys in a tank. They will leave all the other species alone and only focus on each other. And why it is so important to have a big 100+ gallon tank, plenty of hiding spaces, and 5 or 6 or more of these guys is because the large tank size will give them plenty of room to get away from each other when there is aggression. And the hiding spaces, they can easily hide from one another if they need to like get a breather from each other. And having 5 or more of them, it disperses the aggression. Like, you have one rainbow shark chasing another one, and then he'll see another one of those rainbow sharks and go after that other one and leave the one he was chasing alone. And also, like, eventually they get like, it's at that point where like they get like to the point where they're just pretty much used to each other. They know that like they can't just waste all their energy like fighting and chasing each other all over the place. And they just, sometimes in my old videos, you can see them all swimming peacefully together without batting an eye at each other. And when the chases would happen, the chasing would only be in like short bursts, rather than if you were to stick 2 of them in a 40-gallon tank, they would just be chasing each other in circles endlessly. Whereas 5 or 6, it's a little more chill and the aggression is dispersed. And on top of that, the hiding spaces, they could easily swim behind a plant and the one chasing the other one would lose track. And also when the fights would happen, they would last like maybe 5 minutes, 7 minutes at most, where I've seen people have like 2 of them in a 40-gallon tank, and they would just fight for hours every single day. But I kept that under control because I had a very specific method of doing that. And when people come and ask me, how many rainbow sharks or red-tailed sharks should I put in my tank? Just one. I don't bother explaining the whole, like, big ass tank, multiple sharks, and plenty of hiding spaces thing anymore. Because I already know that people are not going to listen to the full advice. They're only going to take part of that advice, and then they're going to wonder why half of their sharks died, or why one of their sharks killed all the other ones. It's because you did not listen to the entire thing that I told you. So yeah. If you plan to keep a rainbow shark or a red-tailed shark in your aquarium, just do me a favor and only get one. If you decide to throw 5 or more in a 55-gallon tank and then wonder why one of them killed all the other ones, do not blame me for it. Because I never said throw 5 or more of them in a 55-gallon tank. I told you put them in a 125-gallon or something along that size range. Now, I've also had people say like, oh, I put 5 of them in my 55-gallon, they all died. I'm like, yeah, I told you to put them in a 100-gallon tank, not a 55. Or, and then like, the most frustrating part was when they would throw like 2 rainbow sharks and like 5 Bayless sharks in a tank. And I'm like, the Bayless sharks don't count. You have to go out and get 4 more of those rainbow sharks. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, Bayless sharks are not related to the rainbow sharks. Labio species only. So yeah. I no longer practice this, and it's not because I had no success with it. I had a lot of success with it. I stopped doing it for other reasons. And then I stopped recommending that people do it because nobody really listens to full advice. They only take partial advice, and it is very annoying when people take partial advice, they fail, and then they blame you. So yeah. 1 rainbow shark or 1 red-tailed shark per tank. Don't try to keep multiple in a tank anymore if you can't take full advice. Now, I will say it in this video only. If you want to keep multiple rainbow sharks or red-tailed sharks in a tank, have at least a 100-gallon tank that is 5 feet long or bigger. The bigger the better. Have a group of 5 or more, specifically rainbow sharks, albino rainbow sharks, or red-tailed sharks. Roseline sharks, iridescent sharks, and Bayless sharks do not count. And also have plenty of hiding spots, plants, caves, so they can all each claim their own little sections of the tank. You will have that one that is the complete boss of the entire tank, and that is okay. The best combination would probably be to have 1 red-tailed shark with like 4 or 5 rainbow sharks, because the red-tailed shark guaranteed will be the boss and keep everybody in check. Because red-tailed sharks are a little bit tougher than the rainbow sharks. And while the albino rainbow sharks are usually the weakest link of the group, but yeah, that's the only time I'm ever going to say it, is in this video. If anybody ever comments in any of my other videos asking how many rainbow sharks or red-tailed sharks can I put in my tank, I'm always just going to say 1 from now on. Because I guarantee if I tell them 100+ gallon tank, group of 5 or 6 or more, and plenty of hiding spaces, half those people are just going to throw like 10 of them in a 55-gallon tank. So yeah, that's all for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Sorry for the rambling. I was just pretty much venting and like kind of going off on a rant about this one, but I felt like it was important to get this out there. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video, and thanks for watching.